cross-file for this office, and we have 8 candidates for 4 available seats. They are Kimberly Bondi, Dennis Irvine, Bobbi Watt Geer, Jeremy Samick, George Harding, Greg Nevin, Paul Scheinert, and Susan Ilgenfritz. I have statements from the 2 that are not here tonight, so I will read those. But same way, we are going to continue with opening statements of 1 minute. Candidates were asked previously to respond to 2 questions. What do you feel are the most compelling issues facing the school district at this time? And what do you hope to accomplish, and how will you use your individual strengths and talents to meet these goals? I am going to start by reading the 2 statements that we've received from the people unable to attend tonight, and I'm going to ask the timekeeper to cut me off if they go over time. This statement is from Kimberly Bondi. Good evening. I would like to express my sincere thanks to the AAUW for the opportunity to speak to the people of Murraysville, Delmont, and Export about my bid for re-election to the position of school board director. I have lived in this community for 23 years with my husband, Gus Bondi. My children, Gus, Emily, and John, are 10th graders at the high school. I have a BS in Marketing and Business Administration from Rider University. My education, professional, and parental experiences make me qualified to serve as a school board director. The Bondi family is committed to the ongoing success of our community. Our family business has been located in Murraysville for 32 years, and all of us are active in local organizations. Over the past 4 years, I have made it a priority to regularly attend board and district meetings. When important decisions come to the board for discussion and vote, I find it's essential to spend time gathering information. This includes meeting with administrators, teachers, parent organizations, and constituents. There is more, but time has run out. This statement is from Susan Ilgenfritz. A lifelong Murraysville resident, I attended Franklin Regional, then received a degree in business from Robert Morris University. I have over 15 years of sales marketing experience, and currently I'm a sales representative for AAA. My husband and I are proud parents of 4 daughters under the age of 7. 2 are currently enrolled at Newlandsburg. Having children in elementary education has elevated my awareness and interest in public education. As a candidate for the Franklin Regional School Board, I want to ensure that we provide a top quality education while maintaining the fiduciary responsibility to our school and community. The public education system is continuously evolving, and I am committed to finding solutions that enhance Franklin Regional's ability to prepare our children for the world of tomorrow. Having open lines of communication with State Representative Eli Ivankovich, I have a true understanding of current state issues that our district faces. With over 100 programs offered at the high school level, the emphasis should be on adding course selection of value that would enrich students for post-graduation. And my time is up, so I thank you, and I would like to start with Dennis Irvine and have him give us his opening statement.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I've lived in Murraysville for the past 22 years, and 4 years ago, within the past 4 years, I've had the honor of serving the citizens of the Franklin Regional School District as a school board director. During this course of my 4 years on the board, I feel that the one thing that I brought to the community at large is stability. And I've tried to transfer that stability to the school system in a small way, because I have been blessed with the opportunity of serving with a professional board twice, and continue to serve in that professional board right now. We currently have financial stability and academic stability in our district. We were cited as one of the top 25 schools in the state of Pennsylvania out of 497 as being high performing and low cost. And we also have labor stability right now. All of our stakeholders are currently under contract, and they have helped us in our endeavors to keep budgetary problems aligned.
Thank you. Ms. Watt Geer.
Good evening. I'm Bobbi Watt Geer, and I'm a Murraysville resident and a mother of two, a rising senior and a rising kindergartner who will be attending Sloan Elementary this fall. I'm president and CEO of United Way of Westmoreland County, where I spend considerable time improving educational opportunities for children across our region. The most pressing challenge for our school district and public schools all across the state are the fiscal challenges, largely due to the ballooning pension obligations. Along with that, we also have to maintain the academic excellence of our school system, and that's really what I hope to accomplish as I serve as a member of the school board. I think I can bring three key strengths in doing so. First, I have a track record of working with community leaders and business leaders to deliver programs and services that benefit the community. Second, I've served on boards. I work for a board of directors. I understand governance and the challenges of governing. And third, I run an organization. I've run other organizations. I've developed budgets. I've lived within them, and I know what it's like to live with fiscal challenges and develop creative results to be able to accomplish mission.
Thank
and that's
you.
what I would bring to Franklin Regional.
Mr. Samick.
My name is Jeremy Samick. I've been a resident of Murraysville for about 10 years. I moved here in 2007 with my own family, and I also graduated high school from Franklin Regional. My wife Sarah and I have 4 children, and the first is going to be attending Sloan this fall. As a graduate of Franklin Regional, as a United States Air Force veteran, and also I have an undergraduate degree and a Juris Doctorate degree. I really have I have my finger on the pulse of what students today are going to be going through soon when they graduate and they go into this 21st century economy and this world market that they will face. One of the things with the budgets that I really think an area that we can be more efficient is to take our seniors, and the state law actually allows 16-year-olds and up to do dual enrollment classes where they can take courses at other universities and they can graduate early. I myself was able to graduate early because I took AP classes, and I also took community college classes at night and things like that. I want to open those opportunities for students who are itching to get out and to start their careers and open those doors. I'm also an attorney. I've litigated cases dealing with issues that are faced by public schools in Pennsylvania. Currently, we don't have any attorneys on the board.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Hi, my name is George Harding. I've lived in Murraysville for over 20 years now. I have 3 grown sons, all of whom graduated from Franklin Regional. They did very well in school. They did well in college after school. I think we need to continue that excellence in Franklin. However, the world is changing, the environment is changing, the technology is changing. In my experience, I've worked for several companies, both large and small. I've also started 2 companies. I'm very familiar with budgeting. I'm very familiar with cost-benefit analysis. I have reviewed programs, measured the performance, measured the results. I think we need to do more of that in our school, not for the purpose of eliminating a program, but for improving programs, reducing the cost of some programs, and quite frankly, protecting the interests of the taxpayers, the interests of the teachers, the interests of the administration, and the interests of our children. I also have grandchildren about to start in school.
Thank you. Mr. Nevin.
My name's Greg Nevin, and I am running for the position of school director at AAUW. Thank you so much for having us in this evening, and thanks for the rest of you who've come here to support your favorite candidate or candidates up here, and thanks to the incumbent school directors for your good work. You know, in 1990, on the brink of war in the midst of recession, I got together with a few other guys and we bought an AM radio station. We had 90 days operating capital, and Desert Shield was up, Desert Storm was about to launch, and there was no way we should have made it, and we did. I have worked professionally in outside sales and sales management for over 35 years. I have had a child in every grade at Franklin Regional, though I've only been here 10 years thanks to my beautiful second family. I got here with a 4th grader, graduated those 3 kids, and I have 3 now at Sloan, the oldest of whom is on her way to the middle school. I have a vested interest in this community, and I'm looking to give back.
Thank you. And Mr. Scheinert.
Well, I also would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak tonight. I've been a resident with my family in Murraysville for 23 years. I have two sons who are graduates of Franklin Regional. I have 38 years of experience working as a nuclear engineer at the Bettis Atomic Power Laboratory, and we do work for the Navy's nuclear power plants. I'm a graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, and I also hold a master's in nuclear engineering from MIT. At Bettis, we've worked on many plants you've probably heard of: Nautilus, Enterprise, Seawolf, Nimitz-class aircraft carriers. I was chief test engineer on Abraham Lincoln, and I was a manager who did hiring of all kinds of engineers: mechanical, electrical, chemical, and nuclear. At Franklin Regional, I've been on the school board. This is my second term, and with the challenges we face are two, and they are, in my mind, of equal importance. The first one I'll speak on is cost and budgets. We are facing a $1 million increase in the cost of teacher pensions this year.
Thank you,
year.
Mr. Scheinert.
Pardon?
Thank you.
You were over? Okay.
Yes,
All right.
yes, thank you. Okay, the first question, we will start with Mr. Irvine that we have received. What is your understanding of how the district is funded?
Well, our district currently is funded on primarily three avenues. About 40% of our budget comes directly from the state. That's our state assessment that's based upon our market aid ratio. The bulk of our funding for the district, perhaps like 60-some%, is from the local taxpayer effort, and 1% of it is from the federal programs that we receive funding for. So that equals up to pretty much 100% of how the district is funded currently.
Thank you. Ms. Watt Geer.
What I would add to that is that, primarily the school district is funded through state and federal funds as well as local taxpayer dollars. And I would point out that state funds represent, on average in Pennsylvania, 35% of school budgets. It's actually lower here. And the bulk of the rest of it is made up by the local taxpayer. However, nationally, state funds cover about 45% of local school district budgets. So in Pennsylvania, we actually have a much lower percentage of state funding for our schools.
Thank you. Mr. Samick.
And there's not much to add on that, but I would point out there's school districts like Fox Chapel who get a lot less than us from the state, and then you'd go to Penn Hills who would get a lot more.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Again, facts are facts. I think they've just been stated.
And Mr. Nevin, do you have anything to add?
Well, and I didn't mention in the opening comments that this is the challenge. This is the big challenge that I see when I pull this up on the budget on the Franklin page. There is an imbalance, and it's not going to get better quick. There is a looming problem with funding, and I saw a news article that said we're hoping to get to zero, but that's not a done deal yet, and we don't know where the state is yet. I think there needs to be some new and creative thinking for the times coming ahead.
Thank you. And Mr. Scheinert.
I, too, have to reiterate that the largest fraction of our revenue comes from local real estate taxes. The numbers I pulled up said that state was like 27% and federal was down, as they said previously, 1%. So that represents the fact that our taxpayers are carrying a large fraction of the load, and we need to make sure that we carefully use these dollars. That is our challenge. But we are doing this at a time of growing expenditures. As I mentioned earlier, we have pension costs that we're facing that are rising $1 million a year, and we have to make sure, and we have been raising taxes at a rate that's lower than those pension increases. So we have not been passing this on. As somebody else mentioned, we've had a three-party solution to this. It's been administration, represented employees, and taxpayers have provided some of that solution as well.
Thank you. For the next question, I will start with Ms. Watt Geer. Merit pay for teachers is an issue that has been discussed for many years. It has recently received national attention. What's your position on this subject? What are the pros and cons?
Well, certainly, budgetary constraints continue to be an issue for us. However, I will say that if you want to recognize and promote people who are performing well, merit pay is an excellent way in which to do that. And I can think of no better investment than making sure we have the best teachers in the classroom for our students. And if there's a way to recognize that and reward that, while at the same time incentivizing other teachers to perform in that way, I support merit pay.
Thank you. Mr. Samick.
Yeah, I think I support merit pay too. The problem with merit pay is how is it awarded and how do you make those determinations? Right now, there's not a very good system, and it's by nature of a classroom setting where you have one teacher and a bunch of students primarily. And testing doesn't necessarily take care of all of the answers. It doesn't take care of all of the issues to determine who's doing better than another teacher. So it's something that has to be discussed. And I've sat down with the president of the teachers union to discuss how it's done now. And the end result is that there really isn't a good system in place for being able to make those determinations and those comparisons. Right now, the pay is determined on a complex step system, where depending on your amount of years and your experience, then you're going to be put on a different step system. And that really doesn't encourage the teachers who are doing well. And there's already encouragement to do well to the children. But I really think that in my own experience, when I was in school, there were teachers that did a wonderful job in great classes, but there were also teachers who, to use the, like, phoned it in. And identifying those teachers is a difficult task.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Well, years ago, when we computerized one of the companies I was working with, someone said, this artificial intelligence is great, and another fellow in the room said, but to keep the world in balance, there has to be artificial stupidity. Merit system, and number one, let me start off by saying, a good teacher's worth his or her weight in gold. They are probably the second most influential person on our children than the parents. And we need to find them, keep them, and reward them. But if we're going to have a merit program, we also have to have a demerit program to keep things in balance. Today, we don't have that. And as Jeremy said, measurement is always a very subjective term. So I don't know if we can devise, I haven't seen one yet, I haven't heard of one yet, that does not subjectively measure. And by measuring, we've now changed the basis. So it's an area that needs to be studied. We need to get rid of the step system because we're paying people who are older, not people who are better.
Thank you. Mr. Nevin.
Boy, not a lot of great stuff to add. I think we're so far in agreement that that great teachers deserve to be compensated for that. I was blessed that my son had a fella who that creek across the street is named after as his 5th grade teacher. And that fella showed up at my son's high school graduation 2 years ago. And I teared up when I saw Mr. Pearson walk into the auditorium. Great guy. I've also had a teacher sit in an IEP meeting and say, nah, I don't do that, when it came to an accommodation written into the IEP. There are different levels of commitment among the workforce in a school, and the better teachers need to be compensated. Getting there is something that we have to work hard to figure out.
Thank you. Mr. Scheinert.
Well, I think any discussion of pay needs to start with a recognition that Franklin Regional School District ranked 10th out of the school districts in a 7-county area in Pittsburgh Business Times and 30th in the state, and that's a credit to our teachers. So we're doing something right as it is. Now, as far as merit pay goes, I've been working on merit pay for the 38 years of my career, and I've always considered it to be a good system. I would personally favor a shift to that system, but I understand the system that we have and how it got to be the way that it is. I would continue to work to reward good teachers. That's been mentioned earlier. But I also have to say we have trouble getting science and math teachers, and I think merit pay would help us do better in getting those kinds of teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Irvine.
Currently, when a new teacher is hired at Franklin Regional, they go through what I refer to as a 3-year orientation period where they are mentored with an accomplished professional. I think that's one step in the right direction towards establishing the level of excellence that we have done so here at Franklin Regional. I think merit pay is one of those things that's an issue that's coming at us in the next 10 to 15 years will be quite evident. Next year, there is going to be a new teacher evaluation system that will be implemented by the state. We currently, at the board level, were asked to supply money for some software in order to track such a system. So I think over the course of the next 10 or 15 years, you're going to see that direction that we're going to go to. There are some legal obstacles ahead for that to be implemented, but we'll just hold on and see where it's going to take us to.
Thank you. And Ms. Watt Geer.
I did answer that on the
Oh,
front
you
end.
started. Okay. Next question.
Thank you.
Start with Mr. Samick. Do you support full-day kindergarten, or do you believe it is daycare for working parents? What do you understand is the cost this year?
Well, the cost is a tricky thing, and the reason is because we get a block accountability grant from the state. So as long as that accountability grant keeps coming in, the cost is very small. It could be in between $100,000 and $150,000 estimate. I am in favor of full-day kindergarten. I don't think it should have been something necessarily that needed to be brought up. Like I started to talk about in my opening, I really think we need to look at the exact opposite end. When kids get up to the senior high in their junior and senior year even, some of them are ready. And more than we know, they're ready to get out there and start getting dual enrollment credits. When I was in college, I met kids from many other states who really took advantage of that system, and they are well ahead of the kids that didn't take advantage of those type of things. And so that's an area that we can explore more. The state has a lot of opportunities within the state statutes for allowing school districts to work within different universities within the area where they can get dual credit. I took a physics course in college during high school, and physics in high school at the same exact time, and it didn't count.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Well, my understanding is, as Jeremy said, it's somewhere between $150,000 to $300,000 a year out of some $48 to $49 million budget. It was voted on by the present board. I believe it was a 6-3 vote to go to all-day kindergarten. So I don't know why it's still such a hot topic. I thought it was something that was already decided. Personally, I went to half-day kindergarten. I'm the oldest of 6, and all 6 of us went to half-day kindergartens. 3 of us got full 4-year scholarships to college. So we certainly did okay. My 3 sons all went to full-day kindergarten, and they all turned out okay. So I don't know. I think it's like every other program. We need to evaluate it, look at the cost, look at the benefit, determine whether we continue it, change it, expand it, or whatever. Also, just as a footnote, the federal government's now talking about installing a 4-year-old preschool program nationwide. So we may be going a step down in age as far as keeping kids all day.
Thank you. Mr. Nevin.
I'm amazed that it's such a lightning rod, and that the questionnaires that I received started off with that, and so I didn't answer them because I wasn't going to be thrown into that box. I've been a full-time single parent of a child in half-day kindergarten and had to figure out how to get him to the daycare. By the way, the daycare was not somebody laid off from Kmart who had a daycare in their trailer. It was a daycare with a program, and I hand-selected it for that reason. At the same time, my youngest brother, who's a superintendent of schools entering his second time, is working on me, and he's getting through to me about full-day kindergarten. I'm becoming somewhat of a believer. The neat thing is that there are 8 other people that I need to discuss these things with, and I'm not the king. If I do get into the position, I won't make that decision on my own, or any decision on my own.
Thank you. Mr. Scheinert.
Well, I guess I don't believe that all-day kindergarten is daycare. We've seen the impact of reaching out to these younger students in terms of improved performance. I was reading some information today that says reading in school is vital. It makes the difference between whether a student succeeds or whether they fall behind. And getting a student started in all-day kindergarten and getting them into reading quicker by 3rd and 4th grade, and they start reading better they're going to be more successful students all the way through, and we're going to have fewer students that drop out. I voted in support of all-day kindergarten because I believed that it was the right thing to do. The cost, I believe, is around $158,000 to the school district for a year. And we do get accountability block grant funds from the state. That was a question over the last several years, but every year we've gotten it, and it looks like we're going to be able to keep it from here on in. So it's becoming a good choice for the school district because we're getting great funding from the state for it.
Thank you. Mr. Irvine.
Yeah, I too, like Paul, was on the board that made that decision, and I supported all-day kindergarten also. It is an academic program. It is not babysitting. It enables teachers, from my own personal experience, I'm a substitute teacher at Mother Sorrow's School. I have been called upon to do all-day kindergarten several times in the last 5 years. I distinctly remember one assignment that the teacher had left for me that was done at the very beginning of the day. The kids in the kindergarten class wanted to know if I was going to grade the papers, and I did so during my lunch hour, and I came back and I was able to see 3 or 4 students who were struggling, and I was able to pull them aside in the afternoon to give them one-on-one instruction in making their letters. So it's an academic program, and it's relatively always cost-effective. As Paul pointed out, it's $158,000, and I can't think of any better way of spending our money to direct it to the earliest learners that we have.
Thank you. Ms. Watt Geer.
And I had to wait till last to answer this question. I'm a staunch advocate of full-day kindergarten. That's what got me interested in running for school board in the first place. The social, academic, emotional benefits of full-day kindergarten are well documented. Children who enter school ready to read, ready to learn are going to be much more successful, and at the end of the road are not going to cost us tax dollars in remediation. They're not going to end up in the justice system. They're going to be successful in career and in life. We have 2/3 of American children who are not reading at grade level by the 4th grade. 2/3. If we help children when they're in kindergarten and when they're in 1st grade to be better prepared to face the academic challenges through the rest of school, 50 children who are not able to read well in 1st grade, 44 of them still will not be able to read well in 3rd grade. That points to the essential importance of having them in preschool programs, quality preschool programs, and in full-day kindergarten. I can't support it enough.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Harding. What is your position on possibly raising class sizes to 30 students? What effect will it have on student learning?
That will depend on the students and the teacher. AP classes, for example, I think right now are somewhere in a range of 11 or 12 students per teacher, and those kids will graduate from high school and go to study at universities next year and sit in a lecture hall with 150 to 200 students with one professor. So I'm not convinced that we need classes that small for that class of student. The smaller, the lower you go down in the scale in terms of learning ability or performance, I think it becomes more critical. When we get down to the lower 20%, my brother, who's the superintendent of schools in Connecticut, has been a teacher most of his life, puts it this way: the top 20% will always do well in spite of what we do to help them or hurt them. The bottom 20% will always need some sort of assistance, special help. The 60% in the middle, I think, are the kids that we're failing. And I think class size is directly proportional to how they perform.
Thank you. Mr. Nevin.
There are school districts who are beating us in ranking with a higher student-to teacher ratio, and there are schools with a lower student-to-teacher ratio who are not performing as well as us. And you know, we come up with a number like 30. Do we not talk about a number like 25? Do we not talk about a number like 22? And I don't know what that number is, but it strikes me that there is an encampment, and that's one of the things that I would hope to bring is some ability to communicate, to listen twice as much as I talk on a board, to collaborate with intelligent people on both sides of that fiscal fence, to be able to look at what impacts the children in a positive way. Show me a good program and I'll fund it. show me one that you can't cost justify and show an ROI on, and then I have to question it.
Thank you. Mr. Scheinert.
We have a big challenge in this country to improve our education. We're currently ranked somewhere around 27th in science and math compared to other countries. Foreign students often come here and skip their freshman year in colleges. And right here in Franklin Regional, we have 11th grade PSSA scores in math and science that could use some improvement. So I don't think that trying to cram too many students into one class is a wise thing. We need to find the right mix. We need to find the right size. Our students need to improve. As I mentioned earlier, we're doing pretty well. We're 9th in the 7-county district and 30th in the state. I have great respect for what our teachers are accomplishing, but we need to pick up our act. Our average students need to do better, and we're not going to do that by packing them all into a 30-person classroom. So I'm not quite in favor of 30 people in a class.
Thank you. Mr. Irvine.
Well, on our elementary level, our classroom size, we try to scale it down so that we're in the 22 to 25 range. For obvious reason, the early learners and the opportunity to have more individual instruction. Currently, up at the high school, because of some of the our balancing act that Paul and I do, and the current board members do, in regards to controlling costs, enables us to capture certain retirement positions once people have retired. And my big concern with any of capturing those positions is its impact upon primarily class size. And currently, right now, some of our social studies classes do and have 30 students in a classroom. And as thus far, it doesn't seem to be impacting the test scores too much, but at the same time, I know from being an educator myself, a retired educator, that class numbers inhibit your ability to provide one-on-one instruction.
Thank you. Ms. Watt Geer.
I would agree that the number itself is somewhat arbitrary and difficult, but for purpose of the question, I think that we'll run with 30. I went to an open house at the high school about a year or so ago and sat in a math class, and the teacher said that he was actually using the back row of tables to accommodate all of his students, many of whom were not very strong in the subject of math. And so that alarms me, and I think that it is likely situational. I'm sure there are some instances that can accommodate a higher level of students in a classroom, but particularly in core subjects where students may need a bit more instructional time from the teacher, it would concern me that our class size would grow to 30 or greater. So I think that I would evaluate that by the particular course and the needs of the instructor and the students in that class.
Thank you. And Mr. Samick.
I think Franklin Regional is in a unique position where we're in a lot better financial shape than a lot of districts are. But I'll give you an example. Districts who are in very bad shape, when they get in trouble, the state will actually mandate that they have 26 or more students in each class. We're blessed to be in a situation where we don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. The 30 in a class, again, the number is arbitrary, but for the core classes, the maths, the science, the literatures, the readings, and the finance classes, those are going to be ones where you're going to want to have more individual attention to the extent possible. Certainly, as you go down in grade, I think the smaller student ratio is going to be better. On the other hand, when you get to college, when you get to grad school, you're going to be in classes with hundreds of people at times. And maybe, just maybe, it would be appropriate to take certain classes the way that science classes are split into lectures and labs, and consolidate them for lectures every once in a while. You might be able to consolidate resources, and if you have a better science teacher, you might be able to get some learning and that kind of thing too.
Thank you. The next question we have, I will begin with Mr. Nevin. Can you describe ways in which you have been active in the Franklin Regional School District?
Well, I've been active as a parent, and 2 years ago, my baby graduated Franklin Regional. For the 16 years prior to that, I was a full-time single dad. Mom's in Vermont, another story. And so I was the show and holding down a full-time job. I wasn't able to do nearly as much in the community or with some of the nonprofits that I am involved in. as I am these days. But I was very actively involved as a parent. I had 2 kids identified with special needs and IEPs in place, and had actually brought in outside advocacy when necessary to support my own children. I've been reading the minutes of the school board here. I've also been highly interested in the North Allegheny District and the Upper St. Clair District and the Mount Lebanon District, and looking at the notes from their meetings. And the New York School Board Association, the Pennsylvania School Board Association, the Ohio School Board Association. And I talk every day with my brother, who's a superintendent of schools and been an educator for 25 years.
Thank you. Mr. Scheinert.
Yeah, it's a question I didn't expect to get tonight, and it's a pleasure to answer. I've been a volunteer at Franklin Regional Schools for the last 15 years, and it started with my kids. I've been a very active supporter of the band. I've built every one of the band props that they've used in their shows for the last 15 years, and I'm delighted to say that those have been contributed towards the great band that got invited to Macy's twice and to the Tournament of Roses Parade. I actually went to the Tournament of Roses Parade and helped put on the show out there. I've also worked on all the high school musicals for about the last 15 years. I've been the primary set designer and prop designer, and I want to give great credit to my wife, and I want to give great credit to many volunteers whose kids are long been graduated. In fact, we have dinner with them scheduled for tomorrow night. It's a delightful thing to do. Thanks for asking.
Volunteer. Thank you. Mr. Irvine.
Well, first and foremost, I've given back to my school community by serving on the board for the past 4 years, and it's been an interesting ride, and some problems that I didn't think existed that I hoped in some small way I've helped to contribute to resolve. As far as volunteering is concerned, I've been involved with several school groups with the Relay for Life, and we'll be up there next weekend serving as a volunteer with the help of the financial end of it with my wife. And I also have served 2 or 3 years running at the Franklin Regional Concession Stand, so if anybody was up there buying hot dogs 2 or 3 years ago, whenever my son was playing football, you probably ran into me on Friday nights handling Chick-fil-A sandwiches and stuff like that. So I've been involved at every opportunity that I can in regards to also chaperoning at school dances whenever the need arises. I've done that several times also.
Thank you. Ms. Watt Geer.
For nearly the past 2 years, I've been attending school board meetings and largely got involved with regard to the all-day kindergarten discussion, and have, I would say, probably have attended about 90% of the meetings over the past year and a half, 2 years. And that makes for long and interesting Monday evenings, as those of you who have served on the board can attest to. But it has given me the opportunity to learn a tremendous amount about the work that goes into running this school district and keeping it as a top-notch performing school district in the region, and how decisions are made in this community. I've also been involved with the Franklin Area Academic Boosters, which is a group that grew out of the all-day kindergarten question. And through my work, I've been involved with the school district, both in my current position at United Way, but in my previous position with the Community Foundation of Westmoreland County, even before I was a resident of this community, had the good fortune of working with Mr. Hollingsworth to leverage educational improvement tax credit dollars back into the community, which was about $200,000 over about a decade ago.
Thank you. Mr. Samick.
I have 4 sons, so I'm heavily involved in the sports. I've coached Massa soccer for 3 or 4 years now, and I also coached the t-ball. I was an assistant coach for 1 year. I'm involved in my church for 4 years. I was a small group Bible study leader for a group of guys from 9th grade through 12th grade. And I'm also on the board of an organization in Westmoreland County called the Hope Center that provides homework help assistance to students in grades kindergarten through 6th grade throughout the region, not just in Franklin Area School District. And we also provide home repair services and car repair services to people in need. You know, my reasons for getting involved in the school board, my legal career took me into the public school realm. I've litigated public school cases and have become intimately aware with specifically with constitutional rights of teachers and of students relating to the First Amendment and it's an area where I believe that I can contribute greatly to the school board, because we don't have any attorneys on the board right now, whereas if you go
Thank
to
you.
any...
Mr. Harding.
Well, as a parent of 3 boys, I also was involved quite heavily with sports, and as I look back on it, there was several years I didn't see my wife other than passing her on School Road as she was dropping one off, and I had just picked one up because one wanted to play basketball and one wanted to swim. You know, one wanted to play soccer, one wanted to play football. It was crazy. And I got involved with coaching, officiating, doing that during their time at school. After they finished, I continued on through the American Legion program with youth baseball, both in Allegheny and Westmoreland County. I've also been active in several professional development programs for mentoring students who are entering into engineering school through the ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, National Society of Professional Engineers. And my brother's a superintendent. My sister was a board member in New York for a number of years before she retired. And we get together 3 or 4 times a year, and the conversation is always what's going on in the schools today. And things are changing, and I hope I can contribute somewhat to the Franklin Board.
Thank you. I guess we start with Mr. Scheinert on this question. When school districts have budget problems, the subjects typically on the chopping block are art, music, and phys ed. Our district is in that situation at this time. What is your position on these potential cuts? And please explain.
Well, fortunately, in our district, we haven't gotten to the point where we would have to make those kinds of cuts. It would be a tragedy if we did. These programs, these very programs, music and arts, make academic student performance improved. They're a very valuable adjunct to accomplishing the goals of academic excellence that we need. However, if the budgets are such that you can only balance them through cuts, those are the first programs that go. And you don't have to look very far at other school districts before you start finding school districts without those programs. And those school districts are a problem, and the property values in those areas are going down. So we've been successful to try to have some modest tax increases, less than the pension costs over the years, and still retain these programs. In fact, we're working to even make the strings program better at this point. So I think they're valuable programs.
Thank you. Mr. Irvine.
Yes, I also want to reiterate what Paul says, that our curriculum is varied and strong, and it is the reason why people come into Murraysville to want to live. Our school system is that much of a strong draw, and I can't tell you how many times over the past 4 years that people have come up to me and said the reason why they moved to Murraysville was the school system, and because of what we offer. And included in that program are the fine arts and the music programs that we continue to offer. We have been blessed with a district that has an administration who shares that same vision with us, and has provided us the opportunity to keep those programs. We just went through the strings program situation. It was very pleasing to see that the administration stepped up and corrected a flaw in the transition into the middle school program to allow us to keep those valuable programs, and those also help stimulate our kids' academic achievements.
Thank you. Ms. Watt Geer.
Denny, I moved to the district because of the schools, just to reiterate that. I think that the arts and music programs, as well as phys ed, are essential elements of the academic excellence in our schools, and that I would seek to maintain those because they play a very important role. And I'd also point out that childhood and young adult obesity is a tremendous problem in this country, and that's why I'm also a proponent of making sure that we have phys ed incorporated into the curriculum. I think that it's really important for us to acknowledge the close connection between the academic excellence in our school district and the property values that we enjoy here in the Murraysville, Export, and Delmont area. That if we start to compromise the academic excellence, our property values, our community will indeed decline. And that's why I think this strong curriculum that we have developed here must remain intact. only 75% of American young people graduate from college. We have a 99% graduation rate here at Franklin Regional. It's something that we should be incredibly proud of and protect.
Thank you. Mr. Samick.
Yeah, absolutely. I myself play 3 instruments poorly. Music is an important thing in my house. My wife is a state champion of Roswell, New Mexico, but New Mexico state champion pianist. Those kind of things are very important to me, and I want those things for my kids. If we were in a district where we were facing the kind of trouble that a lot of other schools, those are the first things to go. Hopefully they wouldn't be. Now, one thing that I wouldn't be opposed to is looking at other academic programs that Franklin Regional doesn't currently have, which could get us beyond and make us even better and replace some programs that may be outdated or may be too costly to be worth it, depending on the amount of kids that are involved. But at this time, I don't see a need for that. With the pension problem, it's going to be compounding each year, getting bigger and bigger, and so we are going to have to make some tough choices with regard to property taxes in those programs. One of the things.
Is that time? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was looking at my next question. Mr. Harding.
One, I agree with things that have been said about these programs. I will say that I do not play any instruments. In fact, I have trouble using the CD player in my car. But I do love music. I do love the arts. And I would not even limit it to those 3 areas, art, music, and phys ed. I think all extracurricular activities are extremely important. The statistics, as has been said earlier, the students who get involved with extracurricular activities, by and large, do much better than the students who don't. What I would suggest, though, is that we need to evaluate these programs, look at their cost, look at the benefit, and look if there are ways that we can provide the same programs at a lower cost. I mentioned my brother's a superintendent in Connecticut. He has worked with the local recreation department of the township and has in fact turned many of these activities over to the township because it was a less costly way to do these things. I'm not saying all can be done, but we certainly should look at what can be done.
Thank you. And Mr. Nevin.
I became a band geek 50 years ago when I picked up a trumpet, and I'm still there. I finally bought a tuba 2 years ago, and have participated in Tuba Christmas the past 2 seasons. Finally, it's not a public school providing me with that horn, but that's how I learned to play it. And my stepdaughter is a better flute player than I will ever be on the tuba, and she's in the 5th grade. It's incredibly important to educate the whole child. It is, music is math, and so, my passion is there. Others revolve around sports. The girls swim competitively on Fast in the winter and Murraysville Swim Club in the summer. It has to work. The looming problem is a defined benefit program for pensions. It's not full-day kindergarten. It's not music program, and I'm happy that strings are going into the middle school.
Thank you. I was looking at the next question, and I will start with Mr. Irvine. What's your position on pay to play? Should the fee be increased, or how much, and by how much?
Well, currently, one of the things that the current board has done over the course of the last couple of years, our extracurricular activity account is running probably about $1 million when we include salaries of those people that are participating in coaching and our athletic budgets and stuff. A couple years ago, we decided that we were going to have a activities fee, and this was in a small way our way of asking the parents whose kids who participate in the programs kind of get a stake in the cost of providing the services that we do. So currently, right now, we have a $50 activity fee that we charge each student in grades 7 through 12. It has generated approximately $65,000 to the general fund. In the future, as costs continue to increase, I could see the board revisiting that issue again and perhaps raising it. There's already been some talk about increasing for athletes' participation in our athletic programs also.
Thank you. Ms. Watt Geer.
I think that decisions about pay to play need to be carefully considered so that all students can continue to participate. I wouldn't want a price to participate be a barrier to participation. So I would be in favor of looking at this in terms of how much. I think that would need to be a discussion that the board would have. But I could see that if the situation necessitated us taking a look at a higher price to participate in some of these activities, that could be a discussion, but certainly with a way to ensure that it's not a barrier for children to participate in either sports or other arts and music programs.
Mr. Samick.
As somebody who participated in Franklin Regional Athletics myself, some of the more expensive ones in football and swimming, and some of the less expensive ones, basketball as well. But I think that there should be some contribution from the students. Again, we live in a great community where parental involvement is really high. And so we have sports boosters organizations who can help offset those costs. And to the extent costs are rising on everybody, I wouldn't be opposed to small costs, but certainly taking into account kids who couldn't pay those costs would be taken into consideration. Another thing with people moving into this district because of the good school district, one of the things we should consider is that one of the reasons those parents are moving in are because those are good parents. They're parents who are involved in their kids' education. And one of the things that I'd like to see happen is have more of an effort to reach out to parents to help them become more involved in their children's education. And I think if we do that, we're going to see greater improvements to our already great school district.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Well, I have mixed feelings on pay to play. One, I was fortunate enough I could afford to pay for my kids to play. When I grew up, there was no money. My father said, you can do whatever you want as long as you have money to pay for it. Money can be found for the kids that need it. But why apply it to sports and not to other extracurricular activities? I believe that all extracurriculars should be on the same basis. Either we all pay to participate or nobody pays to participate. And as Denny said, it's $65,000 in revenue, again, in a $47 to $49 million budget. That's not much money that we should make it a burden on anyone in the community.
Thank you. Mr. Nevin.
You know, there was a black and white photograph in my high school band room of the Kennedy inauguration parade, and Steubenville High School marched in that parade. And we got invited to a lot of stuff after that, and that black and white photograph is probably still hanging there. We didn't get to go to a lot of things, and we didn't get to do a lot of things, so we were an incredibly talented and invited band. I don't know that it's the taxpayer or the parent that has to pay to play. You know, we've got shale money coming into town, and we're going to put the arm on them to do some things. There are major corporations. There are people who are well-heeled in this town. Not everybody, by the way, with an average property value of $200,000 and with a 13% qualifying for reduced lunches. This is not the affluent community that a lot would suggest it is. Let's find other creative ways to get the money for these programs and keep them intact.
Thank you. Mr. Scheinert.
Well, I have the per pupil cost that we're spending this year. It's $13,045 per pupil. Now, I would certainly look at that and say the seniors in our community that are on fixed income feel it when we're spending that kind of money. I would advertise it's in the lower half of Westmoreland County's expenditures per student, but that justifies in my mind a reason for pay to play. And so, like my fellow school board members that talked before, Denny, we enacted a $50 fee for the students to participate. I'm not terribly anxious to increase that at this time, but I think it's going to increase in the future. That's probably inevitable. And I think that we're probably going to examine, does it need to be different for one sport versus another, or one extracurricular versus another, if those cost a little bit more. So it's right in my mind for students to, for parents of students to try to support the load a little bit for their students.
Thank you. The next question, I'll start with Ms. Watt Geer. Is it reasonable for a school district's revenues to keep up with inflation? If not, how can the school district maintain its current level of excellence?
you repeat the beginning of the question,
Is it
please?
reasonable for a school district's revenues to keep up with inflation? If not, how can the school district maintain its current level of excellence?
Well, I do believe we need to keep up with inflation, and the system under which we're being funded now doesn't naturally allow for that. And that puts incredible tension when you add the PSERS, the pension fund ballooning on top of this, that if we're not keeping up with inflation and we add on the additional obligation of the pension fund as well, it's incredibly difficult to keep up with our academic excellence. Over the last 10 years, the PSERS fund obligation has increased by 580%. And that's an incredible burden for us to tackle here and maintain academic excellence. And so I think that does indicate that we have to look very seriously about how can we keep up with inflation in terms of generating revenue in our school district.
Thank you. Mr. Samick.
You know, the way that our taxes are imposed for school district fees are really kind of an inert system. It's based on your property values. It's not like your income, where your income goes up, so your percentage of tax base is going to naturally create more money. So from time to time, you would have to increase taxes for that kind of a reason. But much like the military, they bring an amount to Congress and say, this is the amount of inflation this year, this is how much we would like to have. Sometimes you can give it to them and sometimes you can't. The school board has to make those kind of tough decisions in the next 6 to 8 years. There's going to be substantial increases when it comes to the retirement accounts. And also with healthcare. Healthcare is another issue that's going to be increased substantially. So we're going to have to take some long, tough looks at things and be willing to make things more efficient. There's always going to be people who are advocating for some program. There may be programs out there that are better than ones that are currently offered that might be less expensive, and those are one of the things that I want to look at to ensure that our quality of education increases, that we're more competitive in this global economy, but at the same time that we're being fair to the taxpayers.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Well, I think we need a good definition of inflation before we start. Some people think it's CPI, some people think it's the wholesale price index. I think we need to look at the budget in terms of what's fixed cost, what are variable cost. So it's not a yes or no question. It's not something that can be consistent. It was said that our property values don't change, so the property tax rate doesn't change, but I would point out that the district also gets 0.5% of the earned income tax that's collected by the municipality or by the tax collector. So that if in fact wages are going up proportional to the rate of inflation, then the district is certainly getting a share of that from the earned income tax. Again, you cannot not increase the budget and meet the retirement benefits. That is an overwhelming, in fact, I think statewide for all state employees, including the school employees, is some $47 billion, which is being addressed by the legislature and the governor right now.
Thank you. Mr. Nevin.
We'll need to get smart and creative, and certainly as costs increase, we have to, the budget will go up. The question is, where does that money come from? And how creative are we going to be other than just robbing some more money out of a reserve or taking another hit on the back of the taxpayers in the area? We need to look at every single program and every single expense. We need to look at what we're spending for capital improvement and maintenance, and is there a cheaper way to do that? My mom left a nonprofit where she ran a women's health services on smoke, and then came home to run a household with 3 boys as a single parent, and I swear she could make copper wire out of a penny. That's what I grew up with. And when they bring us the budget and we say we don't have the money for that, you're going to have to take that back and work on it. Some of that falls back on the administration. And we're here to plan, to set policy, and then to review what they're doing with the taxpayers' dollars.
Thank you. Mr. Scheinert.
I think to first answer this question, you have to look at what we've been doing in the district so far. We have had this large pension fund increase going on each year, and we have not raise the money that the school district itself is operating on. The school district for the last 3 years really hasn't seen an increase in the amount of money spent in the schools. All the revenue has gone to this fund. So we know how to do this. We know that we do it through 25 fewer employees than we had a couple years ago. We do it through collective bargaining unit concessions and contributions to health care. And we do it to some extent through increased taxes, which I've considered to be modest. So the whole community has come together because we haven't had revenue that's kept up with inflation. You can't do that forever. And there's just a simple rule. The simple rule is if you don't bring in enough money to pay for your programs, you're going to have to reduce your programs. And that's going on in school districts around us. So fundamentally, I think it's important to keep your revenue at least close to inflation, or you will be cutting programs.
Thank you. Mr. Irvine.
A couple additional thoughts that Paul so eloquently put is pretty much my position on it. Over the last couple of years, over the last 6 years, in fact, another concern that I do see at the school district level is that our special education costs continue to go up. And that's one of those things that we don't have control over, and the state levels for funding for special education have remained stagnant for the last 6 years in a row. And our costs continue to go up at that level. So in addition to the pension costs, that's another concern, that I feel that the school district has. Another thing that I've been concerned with is that our cyber school costs. We have 50 individuals who have elected to go to cyber school, and that's all well and good, and that is a personal choice that those parents have made. My big problem with that issue is that we have $547,000 taken out of our budget every single year by the cost of cyber school students, and we actually don't know what it costs to educate a cyber school kid. And we have brick and mortar buildings that we're trying to maintain. We're trying to maintain transportation issues, and so that's another concern that we have to look into. Thank you.
This next question, I'll begin with Mr. Samick. Do you support the state's proposed voucher system?
Well, I think that the state's voucher system is a good thing. I think that people learn in very diverse ways, and the state voucher system will enable kids and parents to make decisions that are informed for the best interest of their child. I would note that Indiana, the Supreme Court in Indiana, and an appellate court in Colorado recently upheld the constitutionality of their voucher systems, which the state of Pennsylvania's voucher system is loosely modeled after. I would want to point to something that Dennis just talked about with this cyber school. One of the ways that we can solve some of that cyber school cost, you have kids that are numerous kids in the cyber school system, some that are in other forms of homeschool, that they could really get them back into the brick and mortar walls if they would open up flex time where students could come in for half a day, just like VOTEC students already do, and take some of the core classes. And if a parent wants to say, you know what, I'm going to teach them the literature, I can go beyond what they're able to do in a classroom of 25 kids, then they should look at those levels. And you're going to take the kids that are currently coming out of the schools to go into cyber school that's expensive, you're going to bring them back into the school, and that's going to be a reduced cost because half of their costs won't be anything at all to the school district.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
I'm in favor of it. I think that parents should be able to decide which school they send their child to, and the child can go there, and the money should go with the child, not to the school district, not to another school. It should go where the child goes. So I'm in favor of it. And as Jeremy just said, it's being held up in the courts around the country. I think it's a fait accompli, and we might as well learn to live with it.
Mr. Nevin.
I agree with what Jeremy had to say. Yes, I'm in favor of the voucher system. I'm also in favor of Franklin Regional being more competitive when it comes to those other alternatives. Let's reinvent this school to keep the kids here and to keep the dollars here, because I'm not wowed by the performance of charter schools, and I'm less wowed by the performance of cyber schools when it comes to results on the back end of it. I think we can do a great job in this district, which is a fantastic district, But we're going to need to reposition ourselves and reinvent ourselves. And we don't even know, sitting here tonight, what some of the challenges are going to be 24 or 36 months from now.
Thank you, Mr. Scheinert.
Franklin Regional is a great school district. You know, so I've mentioned before, we're in the top 10, and we've got students going to great colleges and universities. It's not clear to me that alternative schools in the voucher system offers a great advantage over Franklin Regional. There are other school districts that aren't so fortunate, and there may be students in those school districts that might benefit from it. So there may be a purpose and a good place for it at some point, but in general, I don't think it applies very well. I think it's for special situations, and we should have alternative education for special situations. I would support that. But in general, I have to agree with what Mr. Nevin said here about these charter schools and cyber schools. The verdict's still out on their performance. So right now, I couldn't across the board say it's a great idea. I'm lukewarm at best.
Mr. Irvine.
Well, to some degree, already we have school choice that's available to parents. The parents have their option of sending to charter schools, which we, of course, do not have any in our immediate area. But there's also cyber school, and then there's those parents who, like myself, in my early education of my children, decided that I wanted to send my kids to a private Catholic school in order to get some religious training as well as some academic upbringing. So there is some viable choices that are already there that are evident. I don't think the charters, the voucher system as such has a lot of issues and a lot of problems that are associated with it. I have a lot of questions that, for example, as to how a student who might be, who has been designated as being a special needs student, how that will transfer well into the a private school setting where they do not have the facilities and the personnel to maybe to handle those problems. And I also want to reiterate what was said on the panel about the charter school, the cyber schools, when none of them made AYP this year in regards to their test results. Thank you.
Ms. Watt Geer.
I have some concerns about vouchers, particularly with regard to accountability and performance with cyber and charter schools as well, and that there's the lack of a level playing field with regard to expectations and performance disadvantages then the public school system, and I'm afraid that the public school system is then going to get hollowed out if we're not making sure that there is a level playing field with regard to allowing those types of choices without the requisite accountability around it. So I would echo a couple of things that Paul said in that regard, as well as Dennis. And we do have a level of choice already available with cyber and charter, and I would like to see at Franklin Regional be able to recapture some of those students who have made those choices and bring them back into the system, because I think that we have a stellar school district, and that the likelihood of needing that voucher system in our school district is pretty low.
Thank you. I'll begin with Mr. Harding. As a school board member, you would be responsible for curriculum throughout the system. What is your plan to follow through and confirm lesson plans are followed, principal values are met, and students are in a safe learning environment?
I think the only way that can be accomplished is to work very closely with the administration and the teachers and with the State Department of Education, who publishes those standards and the curriculum guidelines. I'm also a firm believer on a good teacher will teach in the classroom as she or he best interprets the curriculum and the student's ability to learn at a pace that they set, and that we can't dictate down into the classroom from the board, from the state, or from the federal government. So I think the curriculum must meet the basic standards. I'm a firm believer, though, that the grammar school curriculum is probably the most important. As was said earlier, if the students can't read, they're done. When my brother went into teaching, his first class was in a ghetto school in Hartford, Connecticut. He threw away the 5th grade text. He put it back in the storeroom, and he got primers, and he said, I have to teach these kids to read. I can't teach them 1st grade history. They're unable to read.
Thank you. Mr. Nevin.
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
As a school board member,
I'm sorry. I just was listening and not actively thinking at the time. You know, the job of a school director, as I understand it, is to do some planning and to set policies in place and then review, but to allow the administration to do their job. You know, it's not to micromanage and it's not to rubber stamp. It is to support and fund, you know, a healthy, well-selected, capable administration. And again, the wonderful thing is that there are 8 bright people to sit on that board with and to work together. And hopefully to get outside of our space and to look at other districts and see what they're doing. Look at the successes of some of the districts in our area. You know, I keep hearing we're number 9 or 10. Well, that means we're number 9 or 10. And we just fell from 29th to 30th in the state. And can we, God forbid, look at being number 5 or 6? And how do we get there?
Thank you. Mr. Scheinert.
The school board is responsible for approving the curricula that we use in our program. We have a cyclical review process where those curricula are developed and textbooks are chosen, and those curricula are brought to the school board for our review. I've got fellow school board members sitting in the audience. They know they get packets like that to go over with the curricula in them. So that's how we ensure that what's being taught is the right thing. Now the question comes up, how do we know what's being taught in the classroom? And here is where I have to say, this is where the board holds the superintendent accountable. And the superintendent is our employee. Everybody else in the district works for the superintendent. And so the superintendent gathers the information. We do have, from time to time, comments made about something going on in a classroom that may be inappropriate, and we'll go take action to see if it's in accordance with the curriculum. And the other thing that's helpful is these professional learning communities. They ensure a constant approach across the school.
Thank you. Mr. Irvine.
I've been blessed with the opportunity of serving on the curriculum subcommittee at the school district. And one of my greatest assets that I tell people about Franklin Regional is that we continually upgrade our curriculum. And since I've been on the board, I've been involved with the science, math upgrade. We're currently doing literacy right now. We just completed social studies curriculum review. We've done the fine arts program. And we're constantly asking for input on these committees from parents in the community who all volunteered their time for us to come in and to listen to their concerns. The committee then makes a report to the general school board, and this is our means of implementing the recommendations that are brought from the committee to provide the financial resources in order to uplift the curriculum according to what the committee suggested. I also want to reiterate what Mr. Nevin said, that the job of the board is not to micromanage. Yes, we oversee curriculum, but we're not in there to micromanage the process.
Thank you. Ms. Watt Geer.
There were several layers to that question, but I just will strike upon the key role of the board here is the curriculum approval. And I have observed the board doing that job and has a strong process in place for curriculum approval and monitoring of that, and would reiterate that it is the superintendent's responsibility to make sure that those policies and the curriculum is being carried out in the classroom, and that's not something that a board member should be engaged in.
Thank you. Mr. Samick.
I don't think anybody that's sitting here today disagrees with whose responsibility is to review it in the superintendent's role, but I think one of the things to consider is that there's the textbooks. I'm a textbook wonk. I love going into the school board meetings and seeing the textbook sitting in the back there and flipping through them and reading certain chapters. But one of the things that we can really do to make it better, there's 9 people on the board, there's 1 superintendent, but the more we open it up to parents, then how much more eyes do we have on that curriculum? How many more people are going to be interested and be able to give feedback if there are problems with the textbook if we do that? It's very difficult in the past with some books. Sometimes you don't take them home depending on what grade they're in. But today we live in such a great era where we have these online textbooks where people can have access to them, where parents can have access to them, where the curriculum can be accessible. So the more we reach out to parents who are going to take an interest, maybe one subject, maybe another parent takes an interest in another subject, but we multiply exponentially the amount of eyes that are on the curriculum. And I think if we do that, if we focus on doing that, then we're going to have a better curriculum as a result.
Thank you. The next question, I'll begin with Mr. Nevin. Are you pledged to never, under any circumstances, raise taxes? Why or why not?
Oh, I think that's what got number 41 in trouble. I am not pledged to never raise taxes, no matter what. You know, I live in a real world, and taxes are a reality. One of the things that did attract me here, you know, it was school performance that attracted me to North Allegheny, where my kids were when I first moved to Western PA, and it was the fact that I was working east of the city and affordable taxes in Murraysville that brought us here. You know, again, I'll write the check, but show me a return, and show me that it's going for valid reasons. Show me the number of people impacted. Show me that a kid benefits, and I'll write it every day.
Thank you. Mr. Scheinert.
Start by saying that obviously I haven't participated in the philosophy of no tax increases, because I've voted in favor of a few recently. As much as I say that, I think there's an excellent chance, and I would almost forecast there will be no tax increase this year. But that's because the budget has been able to be worked on over the years to get the cost growth down. I was the one that went and said, I want a projection 4 or 5 years out into the future of what our costs are doing and what our revenues are doing. And I want to make sure that they're coming together. But I've tried to make it clear that I consider quality education our number one priority. Equally important is cost, but we need to educate our students. So no, I've not participated in that type of an agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Irvine.
I also have not followed that rule of thought. I believe that the course of action that the school district has taken over the last 4 years that I've been on the board is a good one. We try to maintain and offer a quality education program, keeping in mind that people do move to Murraysville because of our school system, and to do it with an affordable reality. Our costs have been, we try to piecemeal and cut costs wherever we can. We capture positions during retirement. It's a formula that has worked for us over the last 4 years, and we've done that without the need for cutting any programs, which I cannot say that for other districts who are, you know, are struggling financially. We have a plan in place, and it seems to be working here and keeping our quality high.
Thank you. Ms. Watt Geer.
I don't think that anybody can take an absolutist position on this and many other questions as they relate to the operation of our school district. So no, I wouldn't say that I would never raise taxes. However, I think that nobody enjoys having taxes go up and paying more. And so that I think the approach of really critically looking at the investments we're making in education in this community and evaluating them and making sure that they provide value for us are incredibly important. And I just need to go on record as saying that I've observed that happening with this current school board. All the members really diligently reviewing and taking very seriously the burden of taxes and what that means for all members of the community. And I feel that it's really important to say that, because I think at times folks don't necessarily know the level of dialogue and the stress that it brings the members serving on the board to make these decisions. And I think they've made them wisely, and they've made them with a focus on academic excellence in this community.
Thank you. Mr. Samick.
Yeah, I don't think you can take absolutist positions in that way, but I would have liked the question to also add, would you take an absolute positions on never cutting any programs? Because I really think that if you look at the different candidates' position in this election, that's really the issue where some of us have differed, where there are some on this panel who would say that it's boastful to take, to say that there can be any inefficiencies found in our public school system, which is simply false. we are in a good financial situation. We have a great school district. It's the best in Westmoreland County, but it's also the highest millage rate in Westmoreland County. That's, like Greg said, we'll pay for good programs. But I really truly believe that there are other programs out there that are even better, that are going to prepare our kids better for the future, that are going to give them opportunities for scholarship, that some of the programs that we have simply won't. And by the amount of people that are involved in those programs, it may not be worth it. So we need to look at those type of things with a critical eye.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
In a word, no. But Mark Twain once said, I believe it was Mark Twain, that the only things inevitable in life are death and taxes. And, you know, he's certainly much smarter than I am. Taxes will go up at some point because costs inevitably do go up. The question is, as other people have said up here, is it worth the money? Because most people I've talked to, myself personally, we don't mind paying for value. We don't like paying for programs that are not being measured or evaluated in order to explain the cost.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to conclude tonight, and I want to thank you all for being here and taking these questions. We do have more, but our time is limited. I want to tell you that, as you can tell from the questions tonight, there are many important issues that the community is concerned about. I hope that what you have heard makes you realize the important role that you play as a voter in influencing the actions of the local government and of the school board. Make your voice heard by voting on May 21st. And again, on behalf of AAUW, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, too.